Now, I do want to start out by warning you that there will be spoilers in this video for the last episodes of Star Wars Rebels, those being A Fool's Hope and Family Reunion and a Farewell. So if you haven't seen them yet, do yourself a favor and check them out first before watching this. And with that out of the way, I'm going to start out by briefly talking about the episode A Fool's Hope, which essentially existed so that the rebels could capture Governor Pryce and then use her to infiltrate the Imperial Dome on Lothal for the finale. And this was a fine episode, very action-packed and enjoyable, though I think it irked me just a little bit that somehow the rebels apparently took no casualties during the Imperial attack on their hidden base, other than one nameless guy being shot in the shoulder. Sure, they knew the attack was coming and were ready for it, but when there's that much close quarters combat and stormtroopers still can't hit anything, it causes one to sigh and of course be reminded of the fact that, by and large, this is a show meant for kids. And then shortly thereafter, there's this savage wolf attack that reminds me that, kids show or not, they are willing to push the envelope with violence from time to time, and not to sound sadistic, but that is appreciated. In fact, one of my favorite moments in the show overall was in Season 1, when the Grand Inquisitor beheaded those two buffoon Imperial officers at the instruction of Tarkin. And not to further make myself sound sadistic, but that was the moment I knew I was going to really end up enjoying the show, because they weren't just going to treat it 100% as a kids show on Disney XD and water everything down. They were going to make it Star Wars. Not that Star Wars is about decapitations, but it is about consequences, and without consequences, the show isn't going to generate much interest. My other minor gripe with this episode was, I think the only one who didn't know Ryder was setting the Imperials up when he seemingly betrayed the rebels was Governor Pryce, which is a little hard to believe because both in the show and in the book Tarkin, she was shown to be a very highly intelligent character. Though I suppose you could make the argument she was desperate for a victory at this point to potentially save her and had to take the chance that Ryder really had betrayed the rebels. And again, the point of this episode simply was to set up the finale and get the rebels away into the dome, and for the most part, it did that job nicely. It was also great to see them get almost every important character we've met along the way during the last 4 seasons of Rebels back together for the finale. As for the finale itself, I think for the most part, I found myself just a bit underwhelmed by it. Now don't get me wrong here, it was good, action-packed, and had a very large scale or scope to it. It didn't just feel like any other episode of Rebels, and it did feel like they'd put everything they'd had into it to make it look and feel epic, and it did work. And of course, the very end, where Sabine basically gives us the epilogue, blew my mind more than once, and I'll get to all that soon. But really, one of the main plot points of this episode was the Emperor once again trying to fool Ezra into opening the portal, and Ezra resisting it. Sure, it makes me really want to know what's so special about Ezra that he can open these portals and Palpatine can't, but I just feel like we'd already seen that last week. Yes, it was awesome to see Palpatine once again, and to have him voiced by Ian McDiarmid, but I don't think anyone in the world thought Ezra was actually going to go through that portal. By this point, it really felt like he had a firm grasp on what he was doing, or had to do, and there just wasn't an ounce of tension in that scene, especially since Palpatine was just a hologram, though he was still able to use the Force through it since he did undo Ezra's cuffs. Still, I think we all knew, again, Ezra wasn't going to go through the portal, nor was Palpatine just going to kill him. However, one of the upsides of this last episode is, for pretty much the first time, other than episodes with him and Maul, I found myself really enjoying the character of Ezra. Towards the end of the episode, I actually said to myself, I hope he doesn't die right here. And I know he's essentially been the main character of the entire show, but he's always been my least favorite amongst the Ghost Crew. In this episode, though, he actually felt like a Jedi to me, and I'm not saying we haven't seen him use the Force before or behave like a Jedi at times, but in these last few episodes, in the absence of his master Kanan, we've really seen the character evolve and take that last step from an annoying kid at the start of the show to something far more. And when it ended with him basically being lost, I found myself really wanting to know what happened to him instead of just being happy he was now gone. As for Thrawn essentially being stopped by Purgils, aka space whales, I didn't exactly love that. Go figure. A clever idea perhaps, but a strange one, though it did allow them to have a mystery ending where we're left wondering what the fate of Ezra is, as well as take him out of the picture during the time of the original trilogy, where there should be no Jedi, of course, without killing him or turning him to the dark side or what have you. I did love how ruthless Thrawn was in this episode, when he was willing to bomb the city instead of admit defeat, and I have been predicting all along that Thrawn would indeed die in the finale, but I really thought it'd be at Hera's hands, not Space Whale's. Then again, we don't know for sure that he's dead, but I'm not sure how he survived once they jumped into hyperspace, considering the windows to the bridge had been smashed open and he'd be exposed to the vacuum of space. Then again, Ezra would also face the same problem, but clearly he's not dead, so maybe, just maybe, we didn't see the last of Thrawn either. And now, of course, we have to talk about the huge reveals at the end of the show, which, in my opinion, is what truly saved the finale from just being pretty good. First, Kanan and Hera have a son, Jacen Syndulla, which caught me completely by surprise, because I really thought that kiss between them right before Kanan died had been their first. But it turns out that there had been more than just a kiss at some point, and I can't help but wonder when. The last few episodes had been building to the reveal, to each other anyway, that they had feelings for each other, but clearly at some point they'd done something to express those feelings previously. Either way, I'm happy Kanan's story will, in a way, carry on. He was easily my favorite character throughout the course of the show, and I can't help but wonder what they'll do with his son. Also, at the bitter end, we learned that Kallus had gone off with Zeb to Lyrasan, where he learned he hadn't eradicated Zeb's people, that they were thriving elsewhere, and was even welcomed by and lived amongst them as one of them. And what a perfect end for these two characters, even though I was sure one of them was going to die saving the other. Instead, Gregor was the only, somewhat main character on the side of the good guys who perished in the finale. Even the annoying Ugnaught made it through. Anyway, I did love this ending for Kallus, who grew into one of my favorite characters. When the show first started, I thought he was going to be little more than agent cookie-cutter bad guy, but they really gave him a great arc, one of the best in the show actually. And despite predicting death, I'm happy both he and Zeb survived and got to, I'll assume, live out their days together in peace. Then there's Ahsoka, who I spent the whole episode waiting to show up because Ezra had asked her to come find him while they were in the world between worlds. What I didn't realize, however, is that he meant come find him after the fact, after he'd been lost, wherever he's now lost, that is. And I have to say, she looked awesome. I got the same vibe when I first saw her dressed all in white and looking stoic that I got when I saw Luke at the end of The Force Awakens. Only this time, I don't think Sabine's going to hand Ahsoka Ezra's lightsaber for her to simply toss over her shoulder. Anyway, I feel pretty safe that my prediction that the next animated show will feature Ezra and Sabine is going to come to pass, and I really can't wait for it. As I said, this was the first time I really found myself enjoying the character of Ezra, and though, much like Ezra, Sabine also started out a bit slow and wasn't a character I initially found all too intriguing, she also grew on me, and now the idea of her and Ahsoka looking for Ezra sounds amazing. And I'm not saying that will be the only plot of the next show, but it will certainly be one of them. The other thing this did was confirm that Ahsoka survives after the time period of the original trilogy, which opens so many doors for potential encounters or stories, mainly this hope I've always had that she will meet Luke Skywalker at some point, because those two meeting and Luke telling Ahsoka that Anakin returned to the light before he died could be such a powerful moment that I would just love to see it. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into my predictions here about what comes next for these characters. That will instead be reserved for another video, since this is mainly supposed to be a review. And to sum up my review, again, I thought the finale was enjoyable, and looked and even sounded spectacular. And the ending with Ezra, in a sense, sacrificing himself to save his friends and Lothal, was good and worked, and had the emotion behind it that it should. I just don't know how I felt about Thrawn losing to space whales, or them showing once again Ezra resisting going through one of the portals. As for my thoughts on the show in general, well, to sum it up, Rebels wasn't quite as good as Clone Wars overall, but it was still a great show. What it did do, and impressively, is create a crew of brand new characters and, over 4 seasons, make us truly care about those characters. That's not easy to do in such a well-established universe, and I can only hope that the future Star Wars movies and shows can do it anywhere near as well as Dave Filoni and everyone else involved in it did. It may have been a kid's show on the outside, but at its core, it was Star Wars, and it will be missed, though I very much look forward to what's next. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you thought of the finale and the show overall. So leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.